You're listening to the Monocle Daily, first broadcast from Nuuk, Greenland on the 20th of January 2026 on Monocle Radio.
Greenland, epicenter of the strangest diplomatic crisis of the 21st century, at least so far. What has Greenlandic life been like in the covetous gaze of the US president and the Nuuk fashion house, saying it with hoodies? I'm Andrew Mueller. The Monocle Daily starts now. Hello and welcome to the Monocle Daily, coming to you from Katwak, the Greenland Cultural Centre in Nuuk. I'm Andrew Mueller. My guests, Dr. Stephen Arnfjod, Inga Dora Markussen and Alexa Self will discuss the reasons that Greenland has become an unlikely centre of the world's attention and give some insights into life in this peculiar and beautiful place. Stay tuned, all that and more coming up right here on the Monocle Daily. And welcome everybody to a very special edition of the Monocle Daily, live from Katwak, the Greenland Cultural Centre in the heart of Nuuk, the first of three shows we are doing from here this week. But I'm joined today by Stephen Arnfjod, Professor and Centre Director of the Centre for Arctic Welfare at Greenland University, Inga Dora Markussen, Chief Sustainability Officer at Air Greenland, also a former journalist here in Greenland and former Vice Deputy Mayor of Nuuk, and also with us is Monocle's foreign editor, Alexa Self. Everybody, welcome.
Hi, Andrew.
Pleased to be here.
I'll just set the scene first. We are here in Katwak, this beautiful building right in downtown Nuuk, the great big cavernous atrium we're broadcasting from with wood-lined walls. There's a bit of a cafe over in the distance. Outside, the sun is just about setting at a bit after 4 o'clock here in the afternoon. There's a healthy covering snow on the streets and footpaths around us, and judging by the way the wind is blowing straight into the face of the people trying to get home in the street outside, it's picking up slightly. But I will start by bringing in our Greenlandic guests. And Stephen, I will start with you. Is it possible to explain to our listeners how strange it is, having suddenly found Greenland the centre of the world's attention for the last year, and indeed up to and including the point at which the Monocle Daily is broadcasting live from Nuuk?
Probably not. It's like being in a live show of Stranger Things or something like that. Yeah.
Inga, has it been a big adjustment for Greenland? Because Greenland's whole thing for immemorial centuries has been that pretty much everyone's just left it alone.
Yeah, it's been crazy times we're living in, and I don't even know how to express my concerns about this situation we find ourselves in.
Well, we will find ways of encouraging you to do that very shortly. But Alexis, we'll bring you in now, and just, I guess, with some latest developments, because here in Nuuk today, the Prime Minister, Jens Frederik Nielsen, has been speaking.
Yeah, the big news in Nuuk today, as in just in the town, is that Greenland's Prime Minister, Jens Frederik Nielsen, as you said, gave a press conference this morning at which he told ordinary Greenlanders that it's not likely there will be a military conflict, but it can't be ruled out, and that people should start preparing for such a scenario. He also reiterated that Greenland is a member of NATO, so if it were attacked, there would be consequences for the whole world. Unusually, and picking out those quotes makes it sound like it was quite charged rhetoric, but he's Inga and Stephen will know more than I do, obviously, but he's a restrained man usually, so I think this was probably the most unrestrained that he's been in terms of his public conversation. And then this afternoon, Greenland's Foreign Minister Vivian Motzfeldt, hope I pronounced that right, returned from Copenhagen, where she was speaking to key figures in the Danish government over the past few days. Now, Nuuk Airport was expanded and reopened in 2024, and perhaps we'll talk more about that in a bit, but it's still rather a bijou hub. And this afternoon, when the Foreign Minister returned, she was met by a huge, and I think especially for Greenland, crowd of well-wishers who are really proud with how she's performed over the last few weeks in negotiations with the US and discussions with the Danish government. Elsewhere, Donald Trump is scheduled to speak in the next few minutes, so who knows what will be said then. But we'll try and keep you updated on that. And at Davos today, an aviator sunglasses wearing Emmanuel Macron was unusually direct in his...
He does, in fairness, have an eye infection of some sort, or at
Yeah.
least that's the line.
But surely the perfect opportunity to wear an eye patch. saying he preferred, unusually frank in his criticism of and direct of Donald Trump, saying he preferred respect to bullies and the rule of law to brutality, while at the same time warning against a new era of imperialism. And at the same time, other European leaders, such as EU Commission President Ursula von der Leyen and the Belgian Prime Minister, have also directly criticised the US government.
Inga, I'll bring you back in because obviously Nuuk Airport is part of your remit. That show of support that Lex mentioned that we saw for the returning foreign minister today, does that to you represent what Greenland is actually all about? Because even in our very short time here, we've started to understand that this is obviously a very small community, only 20,000 people here in the capital. It is a place where inevitably everybody knows everybody, and it's a very tightly knit community. And is it your sense that it's come together even more closely?
Yes, it is. What we saw today, which also was transmitted live from some of the Facebook feeds, we could see that there was a huge crowd cheering on Vivian when she came out of the area from the luggage, where you pick up luggage. And this is just who Greenlanders are. We express our feelings, our thoughts, concerns very vividly, very expressional. And this is one of those moments where we were what we are cheering for her for is that when she came out of the meeting with J.D. Vance and the Foreign Minister of Denmark and Rubio, was that when she was asked the question from the hordes of journalists waiting for her to express something from the meeting, she turned to the camera and said, "Dear my fellow countrymen in Greenlandic," and at that moment I just got goosebumps thinking about that moment, because the way she directly talked to the hearts and minds of Greenlanders was that moment where we thought that she is there for us. And she was talking to her fellow men. So that was a moment that we just realized that this is very serious.
On that thought, though, give our listeners a brief Greenlandic language lesson. How does that phrase render in Greenlandic?
Well, asasakkanunaqatikka. And the way she said it was not like, she said it in a special tone that everybody just listened very carefully. But I know Vivian personally. We grew up together. She's an excellent handball player, like the others are a football player and badminton. You know, these are people we know from our daily life. And you couldn't have casted a better ambassador for Greenland in that moment. That was something that we just realized. And when she said it in that tone, I could see in her expression that she was a bit emotional. And we could sense that in the way she spoke. So when she went online later that afternoon and was interviewed by the Greenlandic journalists who were also sending live, she was telling all the things that she was supposed to, but then the journalist asked her, Vivian, what do you want to say to your countrymen? Is there anything? Should we be worried? And at that moment, she just got very emotional, and there you could feel how much pressure there has been on her, and she was like expressing that feeling to us all, and that's the human side of it, and that is typical Greenlandic. We do not wear masks. We're not masking too much. We are very honest in our communication when it comes to things like that.
Stephen, I'll bring you in at that point, because on the question of Greenlandic identity, which there's no way it wouldn't become a distinct and quite intense thing when you have a small number of people in a very remote and very wild place where people have to rely on each other and have to be able to trust each other. But is it your sense that a sense of Greenlandic identity has become perhaps even more profound in the last year, because there has been this external pressure on it in a way that there hasn't really been before? I mean, I know there is an unhappy history in many respects with Denmark and its well, at the very least, failure to encourage Greenlandic identity. But this is a whole different kind of thing.
I mean, what you get here is a sense of unity, a sense of solidarity amongst everyone living here. And sharing a history, sharing a culture, spending time together, and that's probably I would phrase it like that instead of talking directly about a national identity, but you get this strong group dynamic of us versus them in this situation, and us is everybody here that has our daily lives and daily walks of life in Greenland. So that's probably how I would phrase it.
But to follow that up, Stephen, do you get any feeling at all that it's changed the relationship with Denmark in any respect? Because we did hear that statement from Prime Minister Nielsen, I think, last week, saying that if we're forced into a choice between remaining part of the Kingdom of Denmark and becoming part of the United States, we would stay with Denmark. Has it perhaps drawn Greenland and Denmark closer together?
Sure, for the time being at least. I mean, now is not really a time to be split apart. Now it's time to group together. I mean, last year, March 25, when we had the first big demonstration, every journalist talked about that the upcoming election would be the election about independence, that Greenland would declare independence, and it's not really time for that right now. I mean, it'll come, and that discussion is very important, but right now it's about unity. And staying together with partners that we trust and build a trusting relationship with, like Denmark.
But do you think, Inga, and again, I'm asking you to reflect on your own long experiences in working here as a journalist and as a politician, and obviously you know this place very, very well. Has there been a long history of people misunderstanding what that Greenlandic identity is and Greenland's relationship with its own sense of place is? Because there does seem to be this idea, certainly President Trump has, that you could somehow all be bought. I think he's offered $100,000 or $1 million each or whatever. There are senses that perhaps Greenland could be persuaded or co-opted. Does any of that kind of stuff even register with Greenlanders at all? If President Trump came to you and said, look, seriously, here's 10 million each.
Well,
I mean, it's a lot of money.
Yeah, I think the answer will be no. I mean, even though we don't own the land formally, we belong to it. And when we belong to something, that is our kind of culture, our world is based on this schisma about us belonging to the land. This is a part of the indigenous people's culture we are talking about. So you can't buy our soul. You can't buy us for money. That's obvious. And that has been said again and again. What we see now is in the political landscape, if you look at it from here and what has happened in the year past, we had some disputes with Denmark. This happened. We were actually last year in the Christmas time, our Prime Minister back then, before the election, he was very, very strong in his message to Denmark for them have been made genocide on the Greenland. And that was it was a bit cold between us before Trump then came in the picture. And then we kind of go back to Denmark, like we unite in this situation, but not as we see today. This is much, much more unity than we've seen ever before in my lifetime. I haven't ever experienced this kind of unity before, because what we also have is we all strive for independence. And what politicians are talking about, what kind of independence are we talking about? But what we must maybe acknowledge that us becoming independent under this U.S. president is not an option. It's not going to happen. It's not safe. Therefore, we would have to rely on the alliances.
I mean, Stephen, do you feel like any of this has shifted the argument on Greenlandic independence at all? Is there a sense, maybe, I'm just thinking out loud, that it now has been demonstrated to be perhaps somewhat impractical, given that it has been demonstrated that Greenland is vulnerable?
I mean, Greenland is vulnerable, but there's a core need to be independent, to be the ruler of your own nation. and that's not going to go away. We might be looking at a momentum right now, of course, and we need that serious discussion down the road. But no. To be fairly frank, no, it hasn't moved anything. But I mean, I think the general public is becoming more aware that there are new dangers that we weren't looking to now that we're seeing from the West, which is completely paradoxical to us.
Lex, I'll bring you back in at this point because you have been out and about the last day or two talking to Greenlanders and trying to get some sense of how they feel about what's going on. And I think you've got a recording of some of those conversations coming up, but do introduce it.
Yeah, I had the distinct pleasure of wandering around Nuuk, from old Nuuk to over by the new harbour and talking to people, lots of different people, those who would speak to me, and just a few observations and just bouncing off what these two said. I think, I got the sense at least that, as I was saying earlier before we went on air, that this is going to galvanised Greenlandic national identity and given people a sense of kind of common purpose and an idea for the future. And at the same time, it's strengthened bonds with Denmark, who, for all its faults, is perhaps seen as being, benign at least, if not benevolent in its administration of Greenland. And then the other fun thing that just reminded me of something that you were talking about earlier is, if you live and choose to live somewhere like Greenland and Nuuk, then you're someone who is inherently practical. And so everyone I've met seems to have about 3 or 4 different jobs. And I think the best polymath I met was described himself as a rock star, an Olympic badminton player, and an insurance salesman. Not in that order. Here's just a selection of a few excerpts of the conversations that I had with people on the streets today. Let's go and talk to some people. So, how have things changed in Nuuk over the past few days, weeks, with the escalating rhetoric?
Well, I don't know if anything has drastically changed. I think, I'm just speaking for myself, I've just tried to live as I normally do. Of course, it's been difficult and there's been anxiety, and I've had some difficult talks with my partner about what we do if there's a possible invasion from the US. And it's been difficult, but I've just been living my life as it was normal.
What's your view on all this noise and the effect it's having on your countrymen and your country?
I'm downright annoyed by it because it's not necessary. We've got this good relationship with the US. We've been building that for many years. It's been going on since the Second World War, even before that. You have access to Greenland if you're an American businessman or a businesswoman. The government of the US is a friend of the government of Greenland. There's so much we could do. You don't need to threaten with a takeover or annexation. You have access to do investments. You have access to business in Greenland already. So it's annoying people, and now it's also scaring a lot of people.
What do you think about the current situation and the American rhetoric?
There are friendly Americans too. They are welcome.
Yeah.
But these bad people, politicians with bad manners, who are looking us as people that can be bought. Not this way.
Is there anything you think that can be done to calm the situation?
No. Not with him in the White House.
For Monocle in Nuuk, I'm Alexis South.
Lex, absolutely outstanding trudging, howling wind and passing traffic there. How approachable were people? Did you get any sense that at this point that the novelty of being pestered by foreign journalists is wearing off somewhat?
Yes, let's say it's worn off a bit more than the snow and the ice, which I completely understand. Nuuk is a small place. It's a population of about 20,000 people. And And I imagine almost everyone has seen foreign journalists, walking around. You see people taking photos. We're staying at the wonderful Hotel Hans Egede, but it seems to be breakfast is just one big press pool, with some boiled eggs. So, it's the biggest story in the world. And I suppose, the second interview there was with Christian Keltsen, who's the head of the Greenlandic Business Association and also the honorary British consul in Nuuk. Really a helpful and intelligent man. He said, the media also has a responsibility here, because part of it is self-generating. Trump, well, who knows if Trump sleeps, but first thing in the morning, someone asks him a question about Greenland, and then that response is leading the news the whole day, and then it kind of feeds itself and creates this hype around the story. Now, look, it's a serious story, and people are scared, as you heard there. But yeah, at the same time, I think we have a responsibility to report it in a measured way, which I hope we're doing.
Well, I'll bring our Greenlandic guests back in. And Inga, I'll start with you, because we wanted to talk a bit in detail about Air Greenland, because it strikes me that the relationship that Air Greenland has with Greenland is perhaps uniquely intimate between any flag carrier and the nation it services. Now, we all flew here today on Air Greenland's Airbus, to be clear. We paid for our own tickets. But how unusual do you think that relationship is? Because it's crucial to Greenland, isn't it? It's your lifeline.
It is. It's a very special relationship people have with the company, especially when there are irregularities and you have to cancel flights due to weather or bad visibility or whatever.
This must happen quite a lot.
It does, and it's getting worse and worse by the years, because the climate change obviously are affecting our planning, our programs. So we have, and maybe you've heard and read about this in the media, about Greenland being like it has been hyped as a very interesting tourist destination, and all this talk about Greenland also reaches out to a lot of people who want to come here. But we also have seen irregularities when we can't fly on one day and you have to stay at a hotel, and this is accommodation and this is transport to the airport and things like that. And Air Greenland does pay for all this, because we are serving our communities, and that is our standard. This is a whole another ballgame, talking about. You mentioned here, Alexis, before that this is a small place, but for us, Greenland, Nuuk is a big place. so we take care of our customers, and not only that, because the big plane you came with yesterday. Well, we got it 3 years ago from Toulouse, and we flew the Virgin flight to Gargaslusuaq before this airstrip opened, and I get goosebumps again talking about this. This is our. Everybody has flown in this if you're going abroad.
And to extend our listeners' understanding of Greenlandic, you have a special name for the plane, right?
Yes, it's called Dugak. And we are getting another plane later this year, which is also going to be colored in red and everything like that. And as is for the new airstrip coming up in North Greenland, like Ilulis said. And we made this competition to give it a name, which we also did with the red one we flew with yesterday, the Queen, we call her. And it was a lot of engagement from the locals. I mean, we got about 2,000 suggestions for this, 2,000 people participating for this name. And this tells us about that we are a critical infrastructure in Greenland. We have 14 helicopters. We have a search and rescue operation going on in cooperation with Arctic Command and the police, and we have the Dash 8 turboprop, eight of them, and the landing strips, 9 landing strips, which are only very short takeoff landing turboprop airplanes. And we affect people's lives all the time.
Well, Stephen, I did see you nodding somewhat wearily when she mentioned weather delays and cancellations. But like any Greenlander, you have plenty of stories about travelling with Air Greenland because, again, to make it clear to our listeners, there are no intercity highways in Greenland.
No.
You can't drive from one place to another. This is your only option.
Sailing and dog sledding, yeah.
Have you done the helicopter trips with Air Greenland?
Sure.
How bumpy does that get on a...
It's not that bad, though. I mean, they're super professional people, all of them. But I mean, helicopters are as they are. So it does get bumpy, though. But it's part of the enjoyment of traveling.
Inga, I did want to ask, though, because even just speaking to people here about their Air Greenland experiences, someone was telling us yesterday they'd been on the Airbus, I think, a few days ago when it only touched down at Nuuk, I think, at the fourth attempt, which I suspect was fairly hair-raising for everybody on board. But do pilots get extra training, or is there specifically Greenlandic training to be able to fly on one of your aircraft?
Yes, of course there is, because this is we got the European Airline Association's words for that. This is the most complex operation in the whole of Europe. So of course we make a lot of training in simulators for our crew. So when you get a job in Air Greenland as a pilot, you will go through a very strict training for our aircrafts, of course, and helicopters. We station pilots like in Bidufvik, where the Bidufvik airspace space base is placed.
The US base.
Yeah, and that is the one pilot which is there all alone with a mechanic. And you can just imagine all the helicopters we placed around the Greenland. And they have to fly in very difficult conditions sometimes. And it is common in the winter time. Sometimes people have to wait 10 days, 12 days or more for coming from A to B.
I should mention to our listeners as well that if you go to monocle.com's website, you will find a recent piece in the magazine about Air Greenland by our reporter Gabriel Lee. So I do encourage everyone to go and look at that and learn more about this remarkable organisation. We are just about out of time with our panel, but before we let you both go, the reason we came here this week was partly because we thought, wow, a chance to visit Greenland, how fantastic, and so far it has been. But we did want to give our listeners some sense of what this place and the people in it are actually like, because over the last year, as I'm sure you're both aware, Greenland's been referred to as if it was this neutral, inanimate object on some geostrategic chessboard. So I'll ask you both in turn. I'll ask you first, Stephen, if there's one thing that you think of when you think of Greenland, whether it's a particular place or a work of art or a piece of literature or anything at all, something that really evokes this place for you, that really sums up what makes it special.
It's home. I mean, that's the general part of it. It'll be like asking anybody about their home, their culture, how things are, how they smell. One of the things that's important to me is the view, going up in the mountains, looking over the fjords, and enjoying the cold breeze of air, and enjoying Greenlandic food. So it's everything that sort of makes up what home is to you, what a community is to you.
Well, I had here at lunch the musk ox hot dog, and so I'm right with you on Greenlandic foods. Inga, I'll put the same to you. When you think of this extraordinary place, what do you think of most?
I think of the Inuit. We are part of the Inuit culture, and Inuit means human beings, and we are actually on the land of the human beings. That's how we express ourselves in terms of belonging to the land. We live off the land, we fish of it, we hunt. Still, you can be a very modern CEO, but you still go out for the hunting to fill your freezer up with meat and fish and everything the nature gives you. This is something we are attached to the nature, and this defines us. So I would say for myself, if I could express it and try to make people understand, I am from South Greenland. Mm-hmm. My grandfather was a sheep farmer. He had 15 children. They had 15 children. They had this sheep farm, big sheep farm. When I come there to ground myself. there is something in the green. This is a very, very old land. You will feel it when you go into the nature. You will feel the vastness, and you will just understand that, yes, we are delayed one day, but whether, I mean, we accept the nature forces, but if a European comes in the same situation, you know, it's a very stressful experience. But try to learn something from the Inuit culture. That would be this accepting the nature's way, and that's what we used to.
Inga Dora Markussen, Dr. Steve Arnfjod and Alexa Self, thank you all very much for joining us. Finally, on today's show, while we have been here in Greenland, our team have been talking to people on the ground about their feelings on Trump's threats of invasion. One in particular I spoke to earlier was David Rogils, the co-founder of the Greenlandic brand BB Chemnitz, whose Greenland is not for sale T-shirts and hoodies are flying off the shelves, and not just to Greenlanders. Well, earlier I spoke to David in the BB Chemnitz shop just around the corner from here and began by asking him whether people had an idea of what brand Greenland means.
Not always. It has helped the last few years. Like for many years in Paris, we had to explain and maybe show via maps we are based here. But we always used it as a way of defining our brand and also separating us from other brands, because we are very unique by being from Greenland. Not a lot of brands are from Greenland. We were kind of maybe the first, I would say, since we turned 20. And definitely the first to mix like contemporary, unisex, outdoors together.
I mean, what would you say is notably Greenlandic about the clothes? I mean, I notice on a few of them there's variations on the Greenland flag, which is a bit of a giveaway. But other than that,
anoraks is a key piece of us. Like many people don't even know what an anorak is, but anorak is the men's national garment here in Greenland, and every hunter in Greenland uses an anorak. So for like 10 years or so, we have made like a hunting anorak, and from that we just grew this. But yeah, like a lot of things is, of course, like with prints and stuff like that shows we are from Greenland. You can't, like, all of every item doesn't really show it's from Greenland, but when you see like the overall design, we have something unique.
Because this is where we should mention, and I want to mention this because this is something to my shame I only discovered recently. Anorak is a Greenlandic word. That is where English got the word from.
So I think it might have happened because of it might be a little bit easier to construct, and so when you only had like the strings was usually intestines from animals, and you had bones as your needles before you had newer equipment. So it's probably more easy to make something that doesn't open up for the wind, where you only have an opening in your neck and you don't have anything opening up in the front. So there is very nice examples at the National Museum here, but also in Copenhagen, of like old Inuit anoraks, how they made them out of. It could be anything from, of course, like furs from different animals, but also they made waterproof anoraks from the intestines of polar bear or seal. Really beautiful.
Impossible to avoid noticing as you approach your shop. You've got the posters in the window saying Greenland is not for sale, at which point we do have to discuss the current situation. How much of that have you reflected in what you're making?
Not really a lot. We came up with the idea for this slogan a year ago, January last year, and worked a little bit on what kind of design we wanted. And we at the end, we just wanted a very clear and simple statement, just the words, kind of inspired a little bit like within Westwood and older like protest T-shirts, where the message is not diluted in any fancy graphics or anything. So we just made one T-shirt, black and white. And we only made it in two sizes, box fit, because we were showcasing that design march in Iceland in April last year. We did an exhibition. We were invited to do an exhibition, and then this world politics issue came, and then we changed kind of our. The whole installation was called "Greenland is not for sale," and then we added a hoodie. So it's not something we like. Last year we were hoping this would be totally irrelevant, and I would gladly have had extra boxes laying in the basement we couldn't sell. Then right now we sell a lot. And
Who have you noticed is mostly buying them? Is it mostly locals, or is it a lot of visitors, and especially visiting media?
A lot of visitors. At our web shop, we get from all over. And this summer, where we had a lot of visitors coming from outside tourists, we sold a lot to Americans. To Americans. But we get... I was just writing to people from the web shop today, and we have all of Europe, many places in the US, Canada, of course, even some places in Asia. Yeah. So, yeah.
I mean, is that something people here are talking about, this idea that, you do seem to have quite a lot of the world on your side? Is that registering here? Because these are obviously extraordinary times for Greenland, which throughout almost all its history has just been left to its own devices.
Yeah, we are not used to having media at this level, not at all. Last year there was quite a lot, but maybe this time it's 3 or 4 times that many. And a few of us can be a little bit overwhelmed at some with the amount of journalists, but in the same way we also appreciate that you guys come here, because we need somebody to speak up on our behalf. The worst thing that would in this situation we are in now would be if nobody was here and we were left by ourselves to defend ourselves. I'm not talking about military defend ourselves, but defend our right in this world we're living in. And with media coming from everywhere, it helps.
That was David Rogilds, the co-founder of the Greenlandic brand BB Chemness. And that's all for this special edition of the Monocle Daily from Katwak, the Greenland Cultural Centre in Nuuk. A huge thanks to our panellists today, Dr. Steve Arnfjod, Inga Dora Markussen and Alexa Self. Today's show was produced by Lily Austin and researched by Annalise Maynard. Our studio manager was Elliot Greenfield. I'm Andrew Mueller here in Nuuk. The Monocle Daily is back at the same time tomorrow, still in Nuuk. Goodbye and thanks for listening.